My name is Gidry Styles. You might see me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna talk about this emerging cannabis market that is coming out, and I'm gonna specifically talk about Michigan. But this little lecture is actually designed to be applicable to the entire country, and that country being the United States of America. So I hope you find this informative. I was triggered the other day at the grocery store, my local grocery store, when everybody was talking about how Monsanto is jockeying into position to control the cannabis industry. Right now, they're an evil company. They create poisons. They don't care about human life. Many countries, other than the U.S., of course, have actually gone as far as to ban Monsanto from their country. So, I get riled up about it, and we're not going to focus on them. But the big question everybody has is, how can a small cannabis business compete with corporate operations now that marijuana is becoming an accepted legal industry? There's a lot of change. Some states are medical, some are going recreational. Everybody heard about Colorado and California making all this money. They're giving it back to their citizens and what have you. People, are interested. And, obviously the corporations, in this case, it was Monsanto that got me thinking about this, but they're interested too. And anytime there's a lot of money to be made, greedy humans are going to come out of the woodwork and try to get their, sliver. That's why Michigan in particular seems to be dragging its feet and, really screwing up a good thing that they had going, because they're trying to make sure all their little, bureaucrat buddies and all their nepotism is, keeps the money in certain people's pockets. And as you see through this presentation, that's just not really a realistic expectation of the commodity, of the cannabis commodity. It's not viable. It's not realistic, and I'm going to prove it actually, and I'm going to give you a step-by-step method of how, if you are a small cannabis industry or a grower or an extractionist, which is one of the things that I wear many hats, but that's one of the things I do. I'm gonna show you in a step-by-step way how you can compete with giant multi-billion-dollar companies like Monsanto. So before I get into that, though, I'm gonna give you a little bit about myself. I'm gonna tell you about my credentials so that you don't just think I'm some crazy YouTuber who's making things up and trying to put it out into the interwebs where anything is possible. So let's get into my credentials so we can move forward through this. Full disclosure, I'm putting this together as a video sample for, hopefully, to speak at Cannacon. I don't know if they'll like me or if they'll want me to talk about this or what. I do have a lot of pockets of information, but I'm an activist and have been since I was 16 and smoked my first joint. I'm 35, and that's about 20 years of varied experience. And I come from the analog era where prohibition was a real thing, and there's still people in prison for life sentences over marijuana. So that's the beginning of my credentials in terms of cannabis. I started as a teenager smoking weed and loving it and wanting to be a part of it. And I've gone back and forth. I've had sober time, and it's not like I've just been in a giant daze, man. That common misconception about cannabis users is that we're stupid, we're slow. Things like that. We're like, oh yeah, man, totally. That's the whole sort of attitude. So now that we are getting information, and it is pretty much at least decriminalized, if not moving towards this legal push. It's a very different game. So, me personally, I had an undergrad degree in environmental science. I have a bachelor of science that I completed. I also, and my focus in environmental science actually at the time was renewable energies and green technology, which actually, ironically, like couldn't get work in that field for a long time, and now I'm kind of like moving into that field through marijuana, which is kind of awesome. I also have, so back then I wasn't doing so hot though. I couldn't get employment. Everybody that I was going up against in the environmental science field had at least 5 years to 10 years of experience on me. The job market tanked. The Obamacare or whatever it's called ended up eliminating the adjunct position, the full-time employee basically, because everybody had to get, all these businesses had to give health insurance to a 40-hour or 35-hour plus employee, and it was expensive. So companies went to cut costs by hiring a bunch of, part-time employees. So I couldn't get the jobs I wanted after my bachelor's, and I was like, you know what, I'll just go back to school. Get another degree. I'll specialize in something, and that way I'll have a backup. And I chose education because education is the single most important thing that human beings can be engaged in. Unfortunately, the United States seems to want to keep us fat, dumb, and happy. I don't know what that's about, but fight the power, because knowledge is power. I learned that from G.I. Joe as a kid during PSAs. So, knowing is half the battle. Anyway, so I went back for a master's. It's a 2-year, and I was already like in the college mode because I had completed the 4-year undergrad, which is, like a stress test that's out of control. So I went back, I got this master's in secondary education so I could teach science, because nobody wants to be a teacher, and I figured I'd teach middle school, which even teachers don't want to teach middle school, and science is definitely one of the fields in the United States that science and math are the two biggest needs. So I figured I was making myself indispensable to the job market in a way. Once I got into student teaching and started to kind of see what private school is about, what public school is about, what charter schools were about, I really was just sickened by our system in this country, because it's not really education anymore. It's teaching to a test. It's a glorified babysitter. It's kids whose parents aren't raising them, and it's just kind of a mess, and that's not really what I was interested in. So I didn't end up getting my certification completed and going the public school route or any of that. It was kind of a bummer, because here I am, I can't do environmental science, I can't even be a teacher now, and I was kind of like, well, so now what am I going to do? I was tending bar though, I had employment, and bartending's cool and everything when you're 24, 25, even maybe up into your 30s, but man, that wears on you, being on your feet all the time, having to song and dance for drunk people, and it's an exhausting profession, and they're constantly trying to take away your tax free tips, or I guess they're not supposed to be tax free, but come on, cash tips, everybody knows. So I mean, it's an industry that itself has been kind of falling apart thanks to corporate, steamrolling in this country. So what did I do? I went back to school again. I was like, okay, I'll diversify, because I'm all science. I'll get an English master's, and I can then teach like English language learners. I can maybe teach abroad, in countries where they value education. I thought that would be the way to kind of salvage this teaching thing I was going to do, whilst not being part of the, U.S. babysitting club, right? Well, that didn't really pan out the way that I had expected either. Nothing really in my life has, so I'm happy with my life. I just, it's been really a whole lot of failing and making mistakes and just not giving up is a huge part of who I am. But unfortunately, what happened to me at this point was I had so much education that and not enough experience in the fields that I wanted to be in. So I couldn't really get the jobs I wanted, and now I was overqualified for, you know, these entry level jobs that could keep me afloat. So I mean, I had like a depression. I didn't know what to do. I was really at a loss every time I'm trying to do things the way the system is telling me to do it. System, the universe just kicking me down, man. And I was kind of at a loss, and I didn't have a way to get experience since I didn't have the 5 to 10 required to get the job. Internships. If you are in college or whatever you're doing, you can get in an internship more valuable than the degree, almost, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But so I'm disillusioned, and I'm on the East Coast, and I'm still tending bar, but I'm just like in this rut. And my little brother, God bless him, is like, yo, come out to Michigan. He's like, I'm in a rebuilding phase. We can rebuild together, if we're joining our resources and, there for each other. How could it, it's got to be better than what I was doing anyways, what I figured. At the time, it seemed really awesome. At least, if nothing else, I get to reconnect with my little brother and, get some fam time in. And so I moved out to Michigan, or my brother moved me out to Michigan. And at the time, I had no idea at all that Michigan had just a few months earlier in an election voted in medical marijuana. So for me, it had always been illegal prior to moving to Michigan. I'm moving out to Michigan, and my brother, he's not a marijuana user or activist or anything like that. I don't know. I need to get some weed, basically. I've been on the grind and failing. Like, it might be nice to have some good weed, get a decent connection in Michigan so that, I can, get my foot in the door. I'm doing all that, and that's when I find out from him and his other friends who were, growing weed and stuff like that at the medical level. That's when I found out that it was medical. And I'm also, among other things, a disabled, an honorably discharged disabled veteran from the war in Iraq. My relationship with marijuana just changed like this, because now I'm not just trying to get high, and I'm not just a rebellious teenager that and everybody who was an adult when I was a teenager told me that marijuana would never be legal, and that I would never see that day come. So so anyway, I'm this veteran. I'm kind of messed up from my time overseas for a number of reasons. We're not going to get into that. But my medical issues is just some of them, a handful of them. I have chronic pain, nausea, insomnia, PTSD, a seizure disorder, traumatic brain injury, anxiety, and depression. All of which can be treated with medical marijuana. So I got my card. I started meeting more people, better growers, people who were willing to get to know me and kind of take me in, which was really awesome. And I started learning about organic processes. I went from having a closet grow in DC to, actually working with a dozen plants at a time and having different phases. And it was really I didn't even realize I was learning all the things that I was at the time. I just, was trying to get involved in this medical marijuana industry and do it legally for the first time in my life. So I'm about 30 at this time, and all these medical issues I had, and dealing with the VA and getting my card, it led me to to the partner I work with today. We grow hydroponically. In Michigan, we're Lansing, it also led me, in learning all the things that I was, it also led me to becoming a strain hunter and really understanding the difference between genotype and phenotype, and what that means as a user, what it means in terms of what ailments I want to treat, It's just a really awesome. It's been an awesome experience moving out here. And it wasn't like I set out to like do the marijuana thing like my buddy John, who's out in Colorado and been doing this legally for over a decade, I think now. He's got like a seed farm and all that kind of stuff. He's Mr. High Times over there, but I wasn't like in a pilgrimage to be part of this weed industry. It just kind of happened, and so that's pretty much like, we're gonna stop talking about me because I don't care for talking about myself like that. But my relationship with this product changed, and I started understanding it on like multiple levels. My black market past, which we're also not going to talk about, it is a reference point though in terms of my experience. Because I had to be safe, I had to be careful, I had to be mindful of what I was doing. I had to understand the economic side of it, and a danger component to it as well that just doesn't exist out here in Michigan the same way it did when I was 19 on the East Coast. Let's get back to the main question now that I've spent all this time talking myself up. Just wanted you guys to know that my information, my knowledge, my insight does come from 20 years of experience in a variety of capacities. So the question that we're going to answer today is, how can a small cannabis business compete with corporate operations now that medical marijuana or recreational cannabis, depending on where you are, now that it's becoming an accepted legal industry? Because when you think about Monsanto and a company that's billions of dollars and can afford the top of the line equipment and the best nutrients, and they've got grow houses, and they can maybe even pay off bureaucrats and officials, and they don't get messed with by the law. Like, I'm just a guy. How do I compete with that? It's daunting. It's a daunting task. And I am going to explain it to you, how you can do it. And I think it's an 8-step process that I put together for you guys. If you follow these steps, you should be successful. There's no reason you shouldn't. Just because it is a step-by-step process, and then I feel like our heads were like, oh, step 1, that's easy. It's like, just follow the instructions, color in the lines. No. Marijuana is not easy. It is agriculture, first of all, and farming is work. I don't know what the hell Seth Rogen and James Franco are talking about when they're saying that selling weed is an easy job. That has not been my experience. I've always had to work, hustle. They call it hustling for a reason, because you got to be on your game and you got to be working. You're putting in late hours. You're not taking a paycheck. It's like any other business. You should expect to take a loss, especially initially. You don't need a whole lot of capital to get started, though. It's not one of the more expensive industries to break into. I think, especially working with the current people I work with, we start with buckets, and you can add a bucket like every so often as you have the money available. You can add a light, you can add a reservoir, or whatever you need in terms of, the hydroponic growing or the soil growing. But it's something that you can literally, start off with one plant and expand from there, which that's affordable. Competing with Monsanto, don't start there, first of all, because you're going to feel overpowered and helpless. You're going to want to start someplace that is affordable and accomplishable for you. So set realistic goals, and this step-by-step process should work for you. So step 1, get legal. State and federal, it's possible. I'm not going to go into the details of how. Every state is different, and the federal process, there's a couple different ways you can get federally legal. But do it, because if you're not, you're your own fault. You're your own problem, and you're still in the black market, which means you're living in the past. So get legal, and that's first and foremost. Step 2, research. There's new info all the time now. When I was a teenager, it was like, you couldn't just Google, how do I grow weed? Like, you had to know somebody, you had to probably have, like, my mother had a green thumb, and taught me about plants as a child. And I had the environmental science degree. So, I mean, I had some things going for me in terms of working in agriculture, but man, I learn new stuff every day, and I have 20 years of experience in the industry. So research, research, research. Step 2. Step 3, experiment. You got to experiment. You got to be willing to take some losses. You got to be willing to try new things. You got to be willing to not listen to naysayers. When I first was talking to my friends on social media about Monsanto taking over and trying to steamroll the industry, they were all like, yeah, the cannabis game is over. It's all going to be corporate. Man. Like, just like real negative. I don't see that being the future, personally. Most people lack vision. So don't listen to people who want to be negative and naysay what you want to do. If you want to grow weed and that's what you want to do and you want to be legal and you want to provide a good, then do it. You can do it. Don't listen to anybody who tells you different. You can do anything you want, Lil Biscuit. You can do it. So trial and error is going to be your best friend. That's how I've learned pretty much everything in my life. So it's painful. It's not maybe the typical scientist's first choice in terms of a research methodology, but trial and error and experimentation is paramount to progress and innovation. So if you want to be competitive, step 3, experiment. Step 4, stop thinking in terms of profit. Start thinking in terms of cutting cost. This is a huge trip up for most people in any business, I feel like, because America drives you to think, I got to make more money. If I make more money, then I'll make more money. And if I make more money, then life will be, no, more money, more problems. That was true. And think about it this way. The more money you have, the more the IRS looking into what you're doing. The more money you have, the more other little people want to get a crumb from you. The more money you have, the more a bureaucracy is going to try and get their pound of flesh. The more money you have, the more attention you draw. It might seem easy, but I was raised by, rich people. I was adopted. And I mean, their lives are not easy. They're definitely like busy, stressful, and now you got to have an accountant. Now you got to have a lawyer. Now you got to have a bodyguard if you want to travel out into like a third world country. Now you got to worry about a whole spectrum of issues, a tax bracket that you may have never even been in. You got to worry about all sorts of things by focusing on profit. But if you can cut your costs, like if you don't have any costs, you don't need any money. You know what I mean? So try and think if you're going to do this business and you want to compete with giant corporations as a individual or group of individuals, the fourth and most important thing that I think a lot of Americans get hung up on is cut cost. Don't worry about your profit margins. In fact, you should be trying to lower your profit margin to undercut the market on a regular basis. That's what's going to make you competitive. And that's what's going to help you bleed companies like Monsanto dry, is by undercutting the market. So if you're thinking in terms of, I'm going to mark up like 600% like these medical providers do in, big pharma and stuff, you're wrong. First of all, you're a greedy little piglet, and you're not going to be successful because, that is not a realistic or sustainable practice. And we're in the agriculture industry. This is a commodity. It's not your typical business. So, that was step 4. Step 5, you want to learn everything. Speaking of finances, you want to learn everything about state and federal taxes. If you can't learn it or if it's Greek to you, find a fiduciary or a lawyer, CPA, someone you trust, definitely, but find someone who is good at that stuff. Because there are tax shelters, incentives, bailouts, research grants, etc. that bigger companies may not be entitled to. They may not, because they have so much money, they may not even be thinking about that process because they are profit driven. So what's going to set you aside is having that. That is another big one that most individuals and small startups don't think about. And you need to get on that simultaneously while you got your one plant. You should have like a nonprofit starting or something going on in that tax realm that is going to, come into fruition as you're growing, so that you're not getting hit all of a sudden with, you need a certification, and if you want to have, 1,000 plants or whatever it is that, wherever you get to or you're aiming to go, you want to make sure that you've already got the woodwork happening by the time you get there. So it's equally as important to learn and have this tax, state and federal tax stuff going as you're starting off, because it's going to be important later if you want to survive against these big corporations who are trying to steamroll the industry. So, that's going to really be key to helping you level the financial playing field, and it ties right into cutting costs, like tax shelters, tax benefits. There's a ton of information out there. You have the internet, use it. And which brings us to step 6, interweb presence. The largest demographic in the United States with purchase power, it's millennials. And I think the Forbes most recent survey or whatever, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, but their preferred place to do business is social media. Will social media remain the marketplace of the future? It does seem things are going digital. I mean, Amazon.com, that's Jeff Bezos, he got money. So, I mean, will that be the future? Will the internet? I mean, I don't predict the future, but I will say that right now, if you don't have an Instagram and a Facebook, at least, you are missing out on potential exposure, free marketing, and you're missing out on, like, getting your name and your rep out there. So, interweb presence for sure. You get somebody on it. If you don't do it, if you're old and you're like, I don't like the internet, get one of your grandkids or a niece or a nephew. That you got to know somebody who is good at that stuff, and it is easy for. You gotta know how to compartmentalize and delegate activities if you can't do it. So that's step 6 is the interweb presence. Step 7 is going to be quality over quantity. That's where the corporations usually screw it up too, is they've got these big grow facilities that they're going to put together with the best equipment, and they're going to have 20,000 plants or whatever. Man, pick out one thing you can do instead of a whole bunch of what the hell's going on. That is you want the quality, because if you have the quality, you can get to quantity. People will come for the good quality. There's always a top shelf market. There's not any swag in Michigan. None. We barely have mid-grade. So in terms of the quality versus quantity, this state is living proof that quality more important than quantity. And quality starts with genetics. You don't have to know genetics to have good quality, but you need to get good genetics if you want to start off with good quality. Even if you're a crap grower at first, the genetics are where it fundamentally starts for us. I prefer seeds to clones, just because clones can sometimes be finicky. You get a copy of a copy of a copy, and now it's blurry. I like seeds. Landrace strains are the oldest of the strains. I would focus there too, but that's not what this broadcast is about today. So if you've got those last 4 steps, I guess it is, the cutting cost over profit, the quality over quantity, the learning about the taxes and the federal stuff, you are going to be able to compete with Monsanto, because you'll be able to survive. You may not have the profit margins they do at first. You may not have the capital. You may not have the best equipment, but if you can get your quality where it needs to be, and you start with the genetics, you will be able to last at least and break even enough to get through till a point where they've bled themselves dry, because the corporate regime is over in this country. They don't know it yet, but it is. Michigan, for example, is the hardest state to open a corporate restaurant in. I didn't know that when I moved out here, but people are not interested in the corporate model. And it's the same cookie cutter crap, which doesn't give you diversity. People want nuance. They want diversity. They want local stuff because they're tired of outsourcing, which is a corporate thing. They want human individual interactions. They don't want robocalls. They don't want automated systems. That's corporate. They want clean, high quality products. They don't want corporate where it's like, you don't know what's really in your food and it might be killing you. People have knowledge now because of the internet, or access to it at least. And, that's a game changer. That's what's slowly, in my mind, kind of putting corporations out of the mainstream. That's not what your goal should be anymore, like in the 90s, where everybody's like, I'm going to be the next corporate, business to make it big. That's not your ticket to being successful anyway. Especially, we're not in this industry anyway. And then, of course, undercut the market, affordable price. That's what people want to see. They don't want to see 1,000% markup on the iPhone 5. Even though people are addicted to the iPhone. Weed is not going the way of the iPhone. So, that is our step 7, and we are over to step 8. You got to fight for it. And don't give up before the miracle. My mom always says that. You got to fight for it. If you want it, fight for it. And hold people accountable. Weed is not a get rich quick trend like cryptocurrency. It's not easy to do like Pineapple Express would have you believe. It is work, and there's a lot to learn. I mean, reefer is an agriculture. It's a science. It's economics. It's art. It's green technology. It's medicine. It's sustainability. It's sociology, and it's love. It's not for the faint of heart, or the greedy piglet, or self-serving corporations. It's too multifaceted. It's too resilient, and now it's too accessible. So for a handful of corporations to control cannabis, I think that's a short-sighted vision of the future, personally. Is it going to be a fight? Yeah. So that's why step 8 is fight for it. Because, this is not going to be some walk in the park where you just start making, millions of dollars all of a sudden. And if you still don't believe me with my experience in this 30-minute friggin' YouTube video, I want you to think of this. America fought a war against marijuana after almost 100 years of smear campaigns and prohibition and people getting locked up for life sentences. America fought a war on drugs, which was driven by the largest lobbyists and corporations in our country. And they lost. They lost the war on drugs. Look at weed. It's spreading like wildfire through this country. Corporations haven't been able to control it for 100 years, like the better part of a century. So what makes you think they're going to all of a sudden control this commodity now that you, the individual, can legally take part in the industry and teach yourself how to be an extractionist like me, or how to be a hydroponic farmer, or how to be a hemp clothing maker, or how to make hempcrete, which is a building material, a sustainable building material. There's how to make a green roof that cools your house in the summer and heats it in the winter, which cuts your cost. So, once you follow those 8 steps, you're going to be able to compete with Monsanto, and more importantly, you'll be able to help bleed them dry with me. So that's my short little presentation to answer the question of how can small startup cannabis businesses compete with giant, billion-dollar corporations. You can. Don't buy the hype, and if you want to do this, then get out there and roll up your sleeves, because you can. And I'm living proof, I'm not getting rich. I'm barely breaking even most of the time, but I love what I do, and I learn new stuff every day, and I know I'm contributing to the improvement of my country, in a number of different ways. And I help other vets get information on CBD and other cannabinoid products. I was able to cut out multiple prescription drugs that the VA had me on. I mean, there's just no end to the positive benefits that have been afforded to me as a result of wandering into this industry. And I hope you take my words to heart. If you did make it through this video, sorry it's a little long, but you know, I wanted to be thorough about it and really explain the breadth of the question. So I'm going to try to host some other forums and answer some questions a little quicker in the future. This is my first one. I'm Guidry Styles, the grow or the extraction company that I rep and help develop. It's called Rogue Organics. You'll see the Instagram @ symbol and logo on the bottom. Here is one of our stickers, just so you have a symbol. Branding is important too. You have a symbol to associate with me. I'm on Facebook as Rogue Organics. Guidry Styles is my alias. You know, I do the alias still. Old habits die hard. You know, because back in the day, like I said, it wasn't legal, and we were under a war on drugs. So I hold on to the alias. It served me well, and in this uncertain transition period, I think it's a safe thing to kind of implement until you do get to a point where you're legit and substantial. If you have questions, you want to reach out, please friend me, message me, Instagram or Facebook. Those are the two that I prefer out of the necessary evil that is social media. I don't get to the YouTube channel that often, but I am posting my video stuff through there. So you can find me on YouTube, Rogue Organics. That's really the thing you need to remember, Rogue Organics. Hopefully, I'll get a slot at the Cannacon this year in Detroit, and maybe I'll see you there. Till then.